I was eating my breakfast this morning, a nice buttery croissant, as I always do, and I bit the inside of my mouth when I did that, like hard, and I was bleeding for a while, so, I don't know why I felt the need to tell that story at the beginning of this video. I was just like, is that a normal thing people do? If not, you'd be like, Tekking, you're such an idiot, you can't even eat breakfast right. I'm like, I guess not. Anyway, how you all doing? Tekking101 here, back again with a random cavalcade of characters. We have Perry the Potted Plant. We have the bee. I think I've given the bee a different name every single time the bee appears, so his name's Benson now. Benson the bee. We have Zoro here, and we have the pumpkin. Okay. We also have Enma. Enma's going to come into play later on in the video. All right, so let's start off with this. This is a little bit of a translation thing, because the whole point of this video was based off the original translation that I reviewed, and then the official VIZ translation came out, but there's still so many cool ideas with this premise that I'm just gonna make the video anyway. All right, so in the TCB version that I reviewed, there was the scene when Vegapunk, or Lilith, Vegapunk #2 Lilith, emerged from the giant robot, and in front of the Thousand Sunny, and Zoro and everybody was there, and Zoro was pretty cool. He was pretty chill through the whole situation, and he looks straight at Lilith and he just says, all right, hey Vegapunk, there's something I want from you, so you'd better play nice. Got it? All right? So that got me thinking, like, all right, Zoro, like, wants something directly from Vegapunk for, like, himself, okay? And then I started to think, like, okay, what could possibly, like, Zoro himself be, like, interested in what, like, Vegapunk is cooking up in the lab or whatever, like some kind of invention or something? The conclusion that I arrived at in the review, the only thing I could think of at the time was that dragons, because, like, there's a whole thing about dragons in One Piece. I'm not even talking about, Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, or the dragons, the celestial dragons. I'm talking about, like, actual dragons. Obviously, Zoro just fought a dragon at Wano, which is Kaido. Also, Vegapunk created the dragon fruit, the artificial one that Momo has, but also Zoro slayed a dragon, straight up decapitated a dragon back at Punk Hazard, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. They just showed up at Punk Hazard and Zoro just cut the damn head off of a dragon, right? Now, it wasn't like as strong of a dragon as like Kaido was or anything, but it was still a damn dragon, right? So, and then there was the whole thing with Ryuma slaying a dragon. So the biggest conclusion I could draw from this was like, okay, what if somebody at Wano, like Tenguyama, told Zoro the whole story about Ryuma, like Ryuma slayed a dragon, several centuries ago, and that's how he was referred to as like the sword god or whatever. And then Tenguyama said, well, then the dragons were extinct and no one ever heard from them again. And because, until Kaido showed up. Maybe that actually might tie back into how all the people of Wano revered Kaido immediately as a dragon god. Maybe dragons did exist centuries and centuries ago, and then they disappeared, and then the people of Wano are like, okay, I guess the dragons are gone, and then all of a sudden Kaido shows up and is like, oh shit, alright, I guess we're worshipping this guy now. Now, to be fair, whether or not the dragons really existed, like, imagine wherever you live in the world right now, you look out your front door in the morning to grab the paper or something to walk your dog, and then a giant dragon just emerges from the sky like, worship me, humans! Whoa! And is like breathing fire and messing with the weather and causing earthquakes and shooting lasers everywhere. Regardless of whether or not in our world dragons ever existed, you're probably gonna bow down to that thing, right? You're probably gonna be like, all right, Acnologia, Kaido, whatever the name of the dragon was in Skyrim, whatever, but Basarion the Black Dread, whatever, yeah, it's sure, I'll worship you, buddy. It's just like, that's how it goes. So that was what I initially realized. Like, maybe there was a connection there Zoro wanted to talk to Vegapunk about. Like, okay, you were making dragons at Punk Hazard, and then there was the whole thing with Ryuma, and then the dragons going missing, and then Kaido. Like, what is with you and dragons? That was basically the question. Like, hey, Vegapunk, I got a few questions I gotta ask you. Actually, I just have one question I have to ask you. What is with you and dragons? And if I don't like your response, you know what I mean? So that was the way I initially took it based off of that translation. So with now the VIZ translation out, the way that they, laid it out with like Zoro talking to Vegapunk was a little bit different. So now it's, hey, Vegapunk, we've got some demands and you're gonna listen. Got that? So it's a little bit less personal in this translation, where Zoro is not like directly saying to Vegapunk like, hey Vegapunk, me personally, Roronoa Zoro, I want to know some stuff and you're gonna tell it to me. Now it's more of just like a general kind of like, we've got some demands, like me and the rest of the Straw Hats. It's almost like since Luffy got sent flying off by the wind, Zoro is acting like the vice captain or something and is taking charge of this situation, which he's 100% in control of. Let's not kid ourselves here. That was the whole point in the chapter where Lilith pops out with the giant robot and all of the mechanized sea beasts, and she's just like, okay, Straw Hats, you know, you're a new Yonko crew. I bet you're gonna have a lot of swag I can steal. Give me all of your gold! And then Shaka communicates with Lilith, and it's like, Lilith, you're a moron. Those are the Straw Hats. Look at Zoro. He's in, you know, he's like eyeing you up. You know, you're in his range. He could kill you immediately. That's Robin. She could also kill you. You're not the one in the place to make the demands here. And then Lilith kind of realizes she's screwed up. And then Zoro also picks up, like, is like, oh no, you don't understand. Like, yeah, okay, you got the giant robot. That's really cool. Oh, you got us surrounded by a bunch of mechanized sea beasts that can fire laser beams, probably. That's great. Well, anyway, I'm Zoro. I have a sword. I have 3 of them, actually, but I think just one of them's probably good here. Like, Zoro's honestly, it's kind of like a situation, like, imagine you're walking down the street and somebody, like, pulls a knife on you and is like, you know, give me your wallet, and you just respond like, okay. And then you proceed to pull out, like, not even a gun, but, like, a giant, like, futuristic laser cannon. And it's like, oh, no, you don't understand where this is going. You know, you have a knife, I have a laser cannon. You give me your wallet, you know? That's kind of like how Zoro is, except oddly enough, it's actually flipped in this context, where Vegapunk, Lilith, is the one that has all this advanced futuristic tech, and then Zoro just has a sword. He just has 3 katanas, but it's just like, hey, yeah, I'm the one making demands here, you know what I'm saying? All right, so, here's the thing, even if you just want to say it now because Zoro's, you know, because Luffy's gone, Zoro's kind of the one in charge, so he's like, hey, Vegapunk, we got some demands, you're gonna listen to us. You're gonna take us to the island, you're gonna take us to Luffy, you know, maybe Zoro still wants to say some stuff to Vegapunk, it's just that in this translation, it's a little bit more general, of just kind of like, no, you're not bossing us around, we're the ones bossing you around. Also might go along with the whole new thing, like, the Straw Hats are now a Yonko crew, they are emperors now. They have to behave, you know, as it, you know? So it's not like a situation where, you know, Vegapunk pops out, Lilith pops out, and just like, you're gonna do what I say, and the Straw Hats are like, okay, Lilith, we'll do whatever you say. No, Zoro's like, screw that. We're a Yonko now. We don't have to take shit from anybody. You know what I mean? Like, anybody that's not another Yonko, we don't want it. You know, we're the ones calling the shots now. All right? And Zoro's just embodying that because he's like, that's our status now. That is our new status in this world as an emperor. We're gonna act like it, okay? So yeah, no, you're gonna call off your sea beast, you're gonna take this giant robot, and you're gonna bring the Sunny to the shore, you're gonna set us down very nicely, and then we're gonna go talk to, you know, the real Vegapunk or whoever, you know? Okay. But in the last, in the review I did, back when we thought it was more of like Zoro asking for something specifically, there were a lot of comments of these like crazy ideas. Some of them were crazier than others that I just wanted to showcase because like it really opens up the possibilities here of like what the Straw Hats could be getting, you know, at Egghead. Like I really think Egghead is going to culminate in Vegapunk becoming the Straw Hats ally, at least maybe Shaka becoming the ally, maybe the main Stella body becoming an ally, maybe like Lilith, maybe they might all become at the end of the day. Maybe at the end of the arc, it'll be like all of the Vegapunks are working together with the Straw Hats. We know since the government has sent Cypher Pole Zero to assassinate Vegapunk, maybe Vegapunk's like, okay, screw the government now. I don't want anything to do with them. I didn't really want anything to do with them to begin with, but, you know, they gave me the island and everything, so whatever. But now that the government's trying to kill him, the Straw Hats are probably going to have to fight against Cypher Pole Zero, so we might have a rematch between Luffy and Lucci, or maybe like, okay, here's the thing. Which Straw Hats, because keep in mind, Lucci has been training too. I don't want this to be like, oh yeah, Lucci is the same as he was at Eni's lobby 2 years ago. No, Lucci has hockey. That's been confirmed in one of the data books in the Viva cards. Lucci has hockey. Kaku has hockey. Stussy probably also has hockey. All their Cypher Pole Zero agents have hockey. Armament and observation. Lucci might even have Conquerors. Like, if Lucci had Conquerors, would that really be all that surprising to you? I wouldn't be that surprised by it. But which Straw Hats do you think have a solid chance of defeating Lucci right now. Obviously Luffy, because he's done it before, but I think Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei all have a pretty even chance of taking down Lucci. Then you get into like maybe Frankie could, maybe Brook could. I don't think Nami or Usopp or Chopper could. You know, I don't think, well, Robin might be able to. Robin with her Demonio, she might be able to take on Lucci. So that's the kind of thing. I don't want this. I mean, look, if it's Luffy versus Lucci rematch, Lucci's going into his awakened leopard zone, Luffy's going into his Gear 5th. Hey, look, I'm not complaining about that. That'll be cool as shit to see. I'm just saying that, like, you know, it'd be cool to see, like, okay, Lucci was the main villain at one point, and now we have, like, Sanji or maybe Frankie or somebody, one of the other Straw Hats, taking on an enemy that used to be the main enemy of an entire arc to show how far they've come. Something along those lines. Even if you want to have a team up, even if it's like maybe Nami and Robin together or Frankie and Usopp team up together to take on Lucci, that would be really cool. Because right now we only know there's 3 Cypher Pole Zero agents going to Egghead, and then there's the Kuma Seraphim as well. Oh, by the way, before I continue, there was an update, kind of like, okay, there was some stuff that needed to be adjusted in the last chapter, and there was a tweet about this from Oda's editor. So as many people expected, yes, Atlas, who was Vegapunk number well, she was wearing the dress that had 6, but on the chart she was 5. That was, in fact, a mistake. That was an error. So, yes, Vegapunk number 5 is Atlas. Okay, so the number 5 should be on her dress, not the number 6. And also, something I did bring up was the Seraphim of Kuma should have had white hair, because all the other Seraphim had white hair, and so that was also a correction. So, yeah, the Seraphim in the Tankobon format, when it's corrected, when the volume actually comes out, Atlas's dress will say 5, and the Seraphim Kuma's hair will be white, just like all the other, you know, Seraphims are, because they're indicative of the Lunarians, okay? So just wanted to bring that up there, right there, okay? But yeah, there's only 3 Cypher Pole Zero agents, and there's a Seraphim of Kuma, so that's 4 of them if the Seraphim fights on their side. So it's 4 of them, plus all of the Straw Hats, and then all of Vegapunk's bodies. We might have to have some team-ups here. This is the last thing, and I'll move on. What if it's like, you know, each of the Vegapunk bodies team up with some of the Straw Hats, and they all fight against Cypher Pole agents? Like, I don't know, Frankie, Usopp, and then Edison team up to fight against, you know, Lucci. And then, I don't know, Chopper, Nami, and Brook, and number 4, Pythagoras, team up to fight against Stussy, or something of that nature. You see where I'm going with it? Like, that would actually be really cool. But anyway, that's a discussion perhaps for another day. So here are some ideas that some people have commented on what Zoro would ask of Vegapunk, you know, if he had like a direct, you know, something he wants from him, okay? So the first thing a lot of people commented were the smile users back at Wano, you know, specifically the citizens that were, you know, forced to eat, you know, the failed smiles that became like, you know, basically pleasures living in like Ebisu Town and Okobore Town and places like that. Now, I got a lot of comments about this. This seemed to be like the most popular sort of idea that a lot of people came up with. This is exemplified in the greatest comment of all time: Zoro wants to cure smile. There were a lot of comments like that. You know, there were a lot of people that were like going into detail on like, you know, Zoro would probably want to help the people in Ebisu Town because of Yasuie and Otoko and everybody, and they went to like detail. And then there's somebody's like, Zoro wants to cure smile users. I'm like, yeah, okay, that pretty much, you know, sums it up there. So yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense, considering we had a lot of moments with Zoro hanging out with Yasuie during Wano, and also the fact that there was the moment with Hiyori where Hiyori kind of breaks down crying in front of Zoro and is like explains to him like the whole point of the smiles. You know, this is what the smiles really do to you, right? And then Orochi took the defective smiles and threw them into Ebisu Town. The poor people in Ebisu Town were already starving. They didn't have any food, so they had to make do with what they had, even if it meant taking away their literal ability to express their even emotions. Like, you know, Orochi even took that much away from them. And so there was that moment with Zoro where he was just kind of, I think that was the moment where Zoro decided, like, I'm going to be the one that's going to cut off Orochi's head. Now, unfortunately, Zoro never got to that point. Zoro never actually got to fight Orochi. He never even got to slice off one of Orochi's heads, which is unfortunate. There were just so many people that wanted Orochi dead that we just couldn't fit them all in, I guess. Although, to be fair, Denjiro kind of took off 2 heads, because he fought with the rest of the scabbards, and at the very end, he also decapitated Orochi for good. So Denjiro got a lot of screen time with that, but, you know, it's kind of unfortunate Zoro didn't even get to cut off one of Orochi's heads. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, what can you do? So, yeah, that made sense, though, because Hiyori was, like, crying, and Zoro kind of felt, like, moved by that, and also the whole idea that Yasuie had eaten a smile. This was something that actually, I can't remember what video it was in, but a while ago I said that Yasuie did not eat a smile. It was actually confirmed that he did, in solidarity with Otoko. So Otoku and the rest of the members of Ebisu Town ate Smiles, and he had the choice. You know, he didn't have to, but he ate one anyway because he was like, you know what, I want to be with them. I'm going to be the same kind of smiling, cheering person. If they're going to be like that, I'm going to be like that too, and try to make their lives a little bit better. And that's why he was referred to as like the Buddha of Ebisu. Okay, so yeah, Zoro definitely had a lot of a connection with Yasue. Definitely like appreciated the kind of man that he was, and also felt for Hiyori's plight, absolutely. So I could see him going to Vegapunk and being like, listen, you know, there was this dude named Caesar Clown, and he was developing all these crappy fruits that made people smile and take away their emotions and stuff. You know, you're a scientist too. In fact, I heard you worked with Caesar, so you should be able to cure, you know, these smile fruits. So maybe that is the case. Maybe Zoro might bring it up, and maybe Vegapunk might be like, you know, he had no idea what was going on with that, and he's like, oh my God, Caesar doing all this stupid science. He doesn't even know how to do it right. Like, all right, yeah, I'll whip up an antidote or something. And then, like, if there's anybody that can maybe change the fruit users back to the way they were, it would be Vegapunk. And this also ties in a lot of these theories that people came up with tie in because Vegapunk connects back to everything. He connects back to devil fruits. He connects back to Kaido. He connects back to the Seraphim and the Warlords and everything. He connects back to Bonney in a way. So there's so many different ways that Vegapunk connects to, like, everything in One Piece because Vegapunk has cracked the code when it came to the lineage factor and devil fruit research. He might be able to remove devil fruit powers from somebody. Now, that could be like normal devil fruit powers. Like, he might inject Lucci or Kaku with something, like a serum or something, and then, like, extract their devil fruit essence or something. Now, devil fruit, that actually, like, changes your DNA, so it might not be as simple as just, like, injecting you with a serum or something. There might have to be, like, a whole surgery he has to perform. Kind of like in My Hero Academia when the doctor can kind of, like, transplant quirks, but it, like, takes a lot to do that. It's not just, like, you know, inject somebody with a syringe, extract their quirk, and then just put it in somebody else. Like, it's a whole process that takes, like, months and months to do. Might be something like that, but Vegapunk might be able to do that. Vegapunk might be like, since he figured out everything about devil fruits, he's like, yeah, I know all about devil fruits. I can make artificial devil fruits. I can put devil fruits into objects, and yes, I can even remove devil fruit abilities from individuals, and it might work on Smiles too. So Vegapunk might be able to do that. He might, because of his research, be able to develop some kind of surgery or some kind of treatment where he can, you know, maybe slowly but surely remove the effects of the Smiles from the citizens in Wano. So keep that in mind. Another idea that a lot of people were commenting, once again exemplified in this comment, Zoro wants new eye! Zoro's gonna get a new eye! There were so many comments that posted that. Like, he's like, so many comments that posted that. Let's just appreciate that sentence for a moment. This is why I don't script these guys. You get the real gold right there. Comments that posted this. Okay. People that commented this were like, this is the moment in the story where Zoro finally gets a new eyeball. You know what I mean? He's going to ask Vegapunk for that. So while I do think it would be really cool if Zoro got a robot eye, like, I'm not going to say no to the robot eye. Like, Zoro gets a Terminator eye, like, scanning, you know, like little, like the little heads up display, something comes up, like, slice them right here. It's just like, okay, shh. You know, I'm not going to say no to that, but I don't think Zoro would ask for something that selfish, for one thing. Like, hey, Vegapunk, listen up. I got some demands, and you're gonna listen to me. I want a damn cool robot eye. Vegapunk's like, you want a robot eye? Okay, I guess I could give you a robot eye. Also, I don't really think that Zoro, like... I don't think Zoro is any weaker with only having one eye. If anything, I think Zoro might be stronger with one eye. You know what I mean? Like, it heightens his other senses or some bullshit. Look at all the stuff he was able to pull off. Like, yeah, I guess you could say if Zoro has two eyes again, then yes, that could increase his power even more. Like, he got so much stronger, but he's still fighting with a handicap because he's limited. He has, like, no peripheral vision on this side, but he also has observation hockey. And by the way, that led to this, where Vegapunk has, like, invented everything, or he's cracked everything when it comes to, like, research. So then it really gets into the situation in this arc, and I hope Oda delves into it. He kind of has already, but, like, science versus, like, nature, or, like, science versus magic. Now, magic in the One Piece world, I mean like devil fruits. Devil fruits aren't exactly magic, but in our world, devil fruits would be magic. Like they're magic fruits that give you superpowers, right? So, but Vegapunk's able to make artificial devil fruits. He could probably make artificial hockey too. Like, why wouldn't he be able to? It's like, oh yes, this is a robotic eye that I invented, and it like messes with your nervous system and your brain, and it gives you observation hockey. Like, if anybody in the world would be able to invent that, I mean, he's like, that's kind of broken that you can just manufacture hockey. It's like, yeah, but it's Vegapunk. He literally studies everything. He has his hands in all these kinds of soups. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, if he could invent some kind of tool or something that can mimic observation hockey on the same level of a master, I could see him doing that. So he's like, yes, Zoro, here is my newest invention, the robotic eye. And just, okay, yeah. Now Zoro already has observations, so it'd be even better, I guess. But I don't think Zoro is selfish enough to ask for an eye, and I also don't think he really cares. I don't think Zoro really, if anything, he probably treats that as sort of like, this is a mark of my pride as a swordsman, you know what I mean? I got cut by Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman right here. I wouldn't, I lost my eye, but in exchange, I gained this power, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think, and also, by the way, that ties back to a lot of stuff in mythology. I'm not going to go into it, but, Odin lost an eye. You know why Odin, the All-Father in Norse mythology, only had one eye? Do you know what he traded the eye for? Wisdom. All right, that was like the whole thing. There's a lot of things throughout history where giving up an eye is in exchange for something good. In fact, just go watch House of the Dragon. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it just came up there too. So yeah, that's what I mean. Like, Zoro losing an eye might have been the thing where he awakened his observation, as good as it is because he lost one of his eyes. So it's a cool idea for Zoro to have a cool robot eye, but I don't think that's what he's going to ask. Next up, people were asking about Zoro's sword. Zoro's gonna get a new sword! Or he's gonna get a cool, futuristic laser light-cutting sword. Now, that actually might happen because of the photonic glove thing that Atlas used in the last chapter, where she was able to interact with light. So, I even mentioned in the review, you could attach that to Sanji's boots, you could attach that to Zoro's swords. One of the coolest ideas that was ever introduced in One Piece, and Zoro didn't go with it, was remember back at Skypiea, when Usopp just, he traded all the dials with the Skypieans with rubber bands. He's like, hey, check out these rubber bands. Like, awesome. Take these magic shells that shoot fire and lightning. It's like, awesome. Fair trade. Anyway, remember when Usopp went over to Zoro and he's like, hey, Zoro, I have all these really cool dials. I can make it so, your sword can, become a flame sword, whenever you want. And Zoro's just like, nah. Now, I think Usopp also threw in some other ideas, like I have this scent dial or this flavor dial where, I can make your sword smell like freshly cut watermelons every time you're practicing. You know what I mean? And Zoro's just like, nah, I'm good. I'm all right. I don't need to smell melons every single time I'm cutting my sword. Although it would be nice. Maybe a nice lavender scent? I don't know. But the flame sword idea was so cool. Like, you could attach a dial to, the guard of the Watto or the Enma or something, like, flame sword! And it's so funny that Zoro wouldn't have been for that, because way back at Little Garden, he used the flaming swords against Mr. Five, right? And he was just like, these flaming swords are pretty cool. It's like, Zoro, you're a swordsman, not just a regular swordsman. You're like a samurai. You're an anime swordsman. Why would you not want a fire sword if that was optional? You know what I mean? So, I don't think maybe Zoro just has a thing where he doesn't like people to touch his swords. He doesn't like people to modify his swords or anything. Those are his swords. That's how he fights. He's like, that's great, Usopp. That's cool. Take those dials and add it to Nami's rod or something. I'm keeping my swords the way that I want them, and that's fair, okay? So I don't think Zoro would want Vegapunk to, mess around with his blade. I think the major reason that people suggested this was because of the SBS a little while ago when they were, I think it was SBS 99, where somebody asked Oda-sensei, hey, if the Straw Hats that did not have devil fruits had a devil fruit, which ones would they be? And Oda said, oh, well, Nami would have the Goro no Mi, which was Eneru's lightning fruit. Usopp would have the pocket fruit. I think it was recently said that Jinbei would have some kind of bird fruit, allowing him to fly, except, he likes to swim, so, he wouldn't need a devil fruit anyway, but, if he did, he would be able to fly. And so, yeah, Zoro's fruit wouldn't be for him, it would be for his sword, and it would be the Ua no Mi model Azure Dragon, the mythical zone, right? So, that would be added to one of Zoro's blades, maybe the Enma, maybe the Watto, and then Zoro would have a dragon sword. So Vegapunk developed the artificial dragon fruit that Momonosuke ate. And as we've already seen with the island aircon system, Vegapunk, like, he tried to make the aircon system back at Baltimore, and he didn't have the know-how or he didn't have the resources to make it work. But then when he got to Egghead, he perfected that technology because Vegapunk is like a perfectionist and he has a really high standard for himself. So he's like, I'm going to perfect this damn aircon system for the whole island if it kills me. And he did it. So you could also imagine if Vegapunk deemed that artificial fruit that Momonosuke had a failure, he would keep working on it until he got to something that he was proud of, okay? Just like with the aircon system. So it might be a situation where Vegapunk now has a perfected dragon zone of Kaido. And so he's just like, maybe if the Straw Hats help him out and like they push back the Cypher Pole, maybe Vegapunk's like, I would be honored if you take this perfected dragon zone. And then Zoro's just like, I'll take it, but not for me. Could you add it to my sword? So that would be really cool if that actually ended up happening. And that's the thing with Oda. Sometimes he says things in SBSs that you think are just hypothetical, and he ends up doing them anyway. So just keep that in mind. Zoro getting a robot eye, I don't think that's going to happen, but Zoro getting a badass Dragon Zone sword, that would be cool. Like, the Dragon Slayer, you know, like Enma, the Dragon Slayer. That would be cool. So then other people were asking, what about Lunarians? Zoro just fought against King, and he probably has a few questions regarding the Lunarians, and of course, Vegapunk has connections to them too, because of the Seraphim. In fact, Seraphim Kuma is on his way back to Egghead right now, being taken by the Cypher Pole, so it would make sense that Zoro, they're going to encounter the Seraphim at some point. The Straw Hats on Egghead are going to encounter the Seraphim. Zoro is going to recognize that the Seraphim look exactly like King, so yes, at some point, I don't think that's what Zoro meant right here and now, because Zoro has yet to see a Seraphim, and I don't know if Zoro would have like the direct line with like, okay, King was a Lunarian, a race that I've never seen before, therefore Vegapunk would have connections to him. I don't think that's the immediate connection that Zoro's gonna make, but when they run into Seraphims, Zoro will immediately know, like, okay, there's something going on here between King and the Lunarians and these new pacifistas. Okay, they're going to know that immediately, or at least Zoro specifically will know that, because Zoro is the only member of the Straw Hats that actually got to see King's face. King's impeccably chiseled jawline, you know what I mean? Sorry, Benson. Okay. I'll hold Benson for the rest of the video. Okay, and then we also have just Kuma in general. So we have Kuma who is there. Maybe Zoro would ask about Kuma. A lot of people brought up, was like, well, Kuma, you know, Zoro had the whole thing, like the nothing happened moment back at Thriller Bark, and that involved Kuma. And, you know, they did know that Kuma was modified. And Kuma, in fact, Kuma even mentioned Vegapunk by name back at Thriller Bark. By the way, minor correction on that. I said that the first time that Vegapunk was ever mentioned in the story was at Thriller Bark by Kuma. It was actually, he was mentioned by Kobe way back in the post-Enies Lobby arc. So a little bit right before Thriller Bark, but like right around that moment, 2006-ish, is when Vegapunk was first mentioned, and even now that we know about him, we still don't know about him, so what are you gonna do? But yeah, so Zoro knows a lot about Kuma at this point. He knows that Vegapunk modified him, and he's a pacifista now, so maybe Zoro would ask about Kuma. Also, Kuma is connected to Bonney. Kuma is Bonnie's father, as we found out in the last chapter, although, here's something. Bonney did not actually say that Kuma was her father to Luffy. All that Bonney said was Vegapunk modified my dad, so he's a cyborg now, and he took away all of his, like, feelings and emotions. And then Luffy was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, right? You know, Bonney didn't actually mention to Luffy's group that my father is Bartholomew Kuma, so keep that in mind as well. They don't actually know that yet. Probably Bonney is probably a little bit reticent to talk about this kind of stuff with, like, other people, you know, especially, like, you know, other pirates, like her rivals. But yeah, so Zoro could ask, I think the most likely options are Zoro, if Zoro is going to ask a specific thing to Vegapunk, is going to be about the smiles, might be about Kuma, or might be about dragons, like the dragon thing with Ryuma, as I mentioned. And then I don't think it'll get brought up immediately with the sword thing. That might be something that might be brought up later. Like at the end of the arc, maybe Vegapunk will be like, oh, and I'm eternally grateful for you helping me out with, you know, defending my island and protecting my research and everything. I will give you this devil fruit. And then the Straw Hats are like, you know, what are we going to do with this dragon fruit? And then Zoro's like, I'll take it. You know, it might be something like that, right? So I'm going to go with smiles or dragons or Kuma as the most likely ones. Also, keep in mind, they're not going to meet the main Stella body yet. We don't even know what the real Stella body looks like. They're going to meet the Punk #1, Shaka, or the good Vegapunk, okay? By the way, I was getting a lot of references that Shaka's helmet. I said it was something similar to like Kamen Rider or like Super Sentai, like Power Rangers design. And a lot of people were quick to mention it actually looks a lot more like Daft Punk. And I've been listening to a lot of Daft Punk right now. Like setting up this video, I was listening to Robot Rock. Go check out Daft Punk if you haven't. It's awesome. They're this French duo from France. A French duo from France. I know. And they wear these really cool robot helmets, and they've been around since like the 90s. And I've definitely heard some of their songs. Get Lucky, I've heard that before, but like I didn't really know a lot about them, but they're pretty cool, so go check them out. Also, an inspiration for Killer, because one of the masks, because they wear these robot masks in their shows, in their stage shows, and one of the masks that they wore, one of these helmets, were actually based off of Killer's helmet. Okay, or Killer's helmet was based off of their stuff. So yeah, and also it obviously makes sense. Vegapunk, Daft Punk. Okay, somebody needs to go out there in the world of the internet and find every reference to punk from like antiquity to like modern society, and Oda's probably going to like, oh, we have to make like a bingo game, like, all right, you know, there's Atom Punk, you know, check that off, you know, Vegapunk, okay, whatever, we have Daft Punk, that's a bingo, you know, we got to make like Vegapunk punk bingo here or something like that. Anyway, yeah, that's the video. A bunch of cool ideas from the fans, so thank you so much, and I hope some of those actually turn out to be maybe all of them will turn out to be true. Maybe Zoro will get a robot eye and a dragon sword. You know, Vegapunk just turns Zoro into a cyborg at the end of this arc, and just like, all right, Zoro, you're ready to go out there in the world and fight against, you know, all of the strongest opponents. You're now ready to face Mihawk. And he's like, scars on the back are a swordsman's shame. You know, that would be really cool. All right, well, anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Oh, I forgot to bring up what's up with Barry lately. Yeah, I was going to bring that up at the beginning. Sorry. It's been a few days. Barry left Quebec. He went to Seattle for a brief moment. Here's a picture of him in the Seattle, like, Space Needle thing, Seattle, Washington. And then after that, he got on a flight, and he's actually in Hawaii right now. You might ask exactly how does he have the budget to fly to all these places? Well, Barry's a brick. Guys, he doesn't need, it turns out he doesn't need passports or boarding passes, really, or anything. He can kind of just, like, fly anywhere he wants in the world pretty much for free because, he's a brick. He also doesn't need to eat or sleep or drink anything, so, yeah, he's having fun. He's in Hawaii right now. I think he's gonna head to Japan pretty soon. He's just gonna tour the whole damn world, isn't he? I don't know, Japan or Australia. Where do you think Barry's gonna go next? Let me know. He's in Hawaii right now. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking, signing out.